So, good day to everyone. So my name's Sean Newman and I'm a product management lead at Corero Network Security. And it's really great to be here with Mark and have this opportunity to introduce you to the joint Juniper Corero solution, which is changing the way organizations defend themselves against high volume distributed denial of service attacks. And I'm going to lead off by talking about the DDoS problem itself and the challenges traditional solutions have defending against today's attacks, and then hand over to Mark, who's going to explain our joint solution to this. So what is the problem we're addressing here? Now, in its simplest form, a distributed denial of service attack, or DDoS attack, is where a large number of devices across the internet are hijacked by an attacker. They flood your network with damaging deluge of junk packets. This either fills up connections to the point where legitimate traffic cannot flow, or it overwhelms applications and servers to the point where they can no longer respond to legitimate requests. As cyber criminals become increasingly skilled, stopping these attacks has become more and more difficult without dedicated DDoS protection solutions in place. And the impact of such attacks is becoming increasingly damaging. In a world where so many organizations rely on the internet to do business, every minute of downtime can hit the bottom line hard. And this can impact providers and end users alike, resulting in lost revenues, unhappy customers, operational costs associated with mitigating and recovering from attacks, costs to retain and attract new customers, and damages to brand and reputation. And because DDoS attacks are having such an impact, we are seeing them more and more in the press. Even networking and security savvy organizations like AWS, for example, are feeling the impact. Plus, we're seeing a worrying trend for DDoS for ransom attacks, where any organization can find themselves on the wrong end of a DDoS threat. However, the vast majority of attacks don't make the headlines. Typical Corero provider customers, for example, are now seeing an average of 8 attacks every single day. This is a far cry from the small number of attacks each year which do hit the headlines. And the surprising thing to most people is that the majority of those attacks are relatively small and short, under 10 gigabits in size and less than 10 minutes in duration. Although we are now actually seeing an increase in the average attack size above 10 gigabits. And this presents a challenge to many traditional DDoS protection solutions. Traditionally, the most common approach to DDoS protection has been what's called a detect and redirect approach, where out-of-band flow monitoring, using NetFlow for example, is used to detect suspected DDoS flows and redirect them for mitigation. This solution has a number of challenges, starting with the use of NetFlow itself, which is designed to report on legitimate flows, not really be a security tool. This can cause aggregation delays while NetFlow attempts to make sense of the junk DDoS flows. And also, NetFlow only monitors the packet headers. And today's increasingly sophisticated attacks also require visibility into the payload to help ensure accurate differentiation from good traffic from bad. Excuse me. And this leads to an overall delay in the process of redirecting the suspicious traffic for mitigation. Diverting the traffic to the internal scrubbing center introduces additional delays. And as average attack sizes increase, the potential for congestion and wasted bandwidth only increases with it. This also increases the amount of scrubbing devices required, which pushes up costs significantly. And ultimately, this approach has a limit on the maximum size a scrubbing center can realistically be increased to before the backhaul traffic consumes too high a proportion of the backbone network. And this is significantly less than the edge capacity of the network itself, leaving the network itself seriously underprotected from the growing impact of DDoS attacks. A new approach is needed, and that's what Mark is now going to introduce you to.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, folks, for attending and joining. And my name is Mark Denny. I'm a product lead in the security team at Juniper, and we're really excited by the opportunity to work with Corero in this solution, specifically given all the information that Sean has previously touched on. We're seeing regular occurrences of attacks in our customer base, and our customers reaching out to us for guidance and help. So the opportunity to work with a cutting edge solution provider like Corero is certainly the first level, first order of magnitude decision making on our part to really partner with somebody who's not doing the same old type of approach, but is really looking forward. And that's a key element. A couple of key other aspects to this. The multi-market nature of this solution. We can address both service providers and enterprises with this solution out of the box, which is key. The flexibility and the approach style, it's what I would term real-time inline, a complete life cycle type of approach versus more of a batch-oriented model, which has been typically done and is still done by the rest of the solutions in the market today. And what do I mean by that is something we'll touch on as we go forward, but also other elements such as the flexibility and scope of the offering. From 100 gig solutions all the way up to 40 terabyte solutions. The Corero SmartWall TDD solution that we offer is extremely flexible in its scaling parameters, high performance, and what we term often as real time, much used phrase, but very much real time in the sense we're continuously looking at the traffic in the network and then applying immediate mitigation and control of suspicious and malicious traffic in the network. So it's a continuous look and apply approach versus more of a batch approach, as I mentioned. The next, as we go through now, one of the key elements we started with is very close and tight integration with the MX series routers, which are industry leading in the market space. Again, multi-market type of approach, service providers and enterprise focused, and we're leveraging two elements within the portfolio. First of all, the Trio chipset, which is a key element to all the MX series routers, allows us a tremendous amount of flexibility at very high speed to push down firewall filters and mitigate that and stop malicious traffic almost immediately within seconds of detection. And likewise, the power of Junos itself and the flexibility with something referred to as the ephemeral database feature of Junos, which allows us to literally dynamically push down rule sets to manage and then remove them as needed once the attack itself is completed. So a very dynamic life cycle. Then we've got the ability to continuously monitor and be provided information about the number of packets that are traversing that device, and really keep an eye, a very close visual on the actual attacks, let's say good and bad traffic, if you will. So it's an extremely flexible solution. Now, all of this happens without actually literally having to touch your running config as a customer, which is key. We're not disrupting the nature of the product itself, the actual deployment style the customer has in place. We're actually layering in a solution that's only performing a very specific task. So an extremely flexible solution, and the speed with which we can do it is really the key element to the solution as well. So once we, you'll see eventually when we go through the solution, the fact that it's a very easy solution to deploy, which has been very attractive to our customers. It's minimal configuration, another key aspect. So, when it comes to the simplicity and the flexibility of the solution, that was another key element that really attracted us to the solution approach. The fact that minimal lines of configuration in the devices themselves, and then you've got the software implementation of the SmartWall TDD solution that's continuously receiving traffic from the network itself. Scales proportionally, which is something nice in the sense where customers can scale it as they need. They can start small and add to it afterwards. Very cost effective. That's obviously relative to the individual, but I think once people have a look and compare, you'll see that stacks up extremely well and provides customers a tremendous amount of business flexibility as well as technical flexibility. So another key aspect to the overall solution, flexibility. One of the comments I made with respect to batch style, and Sean touched on this early on with the notion of traditional approaches, which are direct and detect and redirect using a flow-based solution such as NetFlow, which tends to wait, a period of time before it actually sends information up to a location for further processing. So that's one challenge right there. We're not talking about something that's actually immediate. So that's one element of the batch. Then the level of information you receive from something like NetFlow is only header based. It's not payload based. You're not really receiving traffic that's passing through the router itself. Whereas our approach is you continuously stream data from the actual ports that are being monitored on the MX back to the SmartWall TDD solution, which is continuously looking and inspecting, making up its mind, detecting, looking for patterns, looking for various attacks. And once it sees something that hits its logic, it immediately applies the filter system down through to the MX. We're talking a matter of seconds, and it, anywhere from sub 15 seconds to sub 10 seconds is not out of the question versus minutes. And even being gracious, I'd say you're looking at, with the batch style approach, typically 2 to 3 to 5 to 7 minutes in the range, really depending on the network deployment style. So you're talking about an immediate and continuous monitoring and mitigation, immediate mitigation. That's really the aim of ours. Fast and highly reliable type of mitigation, which is critical to our customers, managing their uptime. So, when we look at the solution now, we've talked about the batch and immediate and kind of an immediate life cycle type approach. So how does it really change, based on some of the earlier discussions? So you've got an environment where, with your MX series routers deployed, the customer really can deploy the SmartWall TDD solution. They can determine whether they want to look at traffic that's coming from the outside, from their upstream provider, from the inside. They really can apply the same solution and same deployment to any port in their network, regardless of the direction of the flow of the traffic. And as I mentioned, whether it's coming from traditional outside, whether it's the internet itself and or an upstream provider itself, or the inside, where you have a scenario. Why the inside? Well, scenarios like I may have a host that has been infected and is now maliciously attacking from the inside. That's one example that we're definitely seeing. And we have a lot of, for instance, mobile operators that are extremely concerned about that from within their subscriber base, their mobile subscriber base. Likewise, within the data center, east, west, north, south type of scenarios where a component within a data center is infected and can start reaching out and infecting and impacting maliciously other devices. So the beauty of this product is you don't have to deploy it only for the outside and then set up something else for the inside itself. It's really doing both at the same time, or you basically tailor to your needs as required. You set up the stream, it's continuously streaming mirrored traffic back from the ports in question. You're inspecting, the TDD does all the inspection on the flows. When it hits a policy that's been set up and is part of the logic itself and or configured on the SmartWall TDD, you push down an immediate mitigation. And what's immediately visible is you can see through the UI console the immediate impact of what's being considered bad traffic and good traffic in a positive way. The other aspect that's really key that I forgot to touch on earlier on with the Trio chipset and Corero solution is that we can also do a payload match. So where appropriate on an attack scenario, we can match down into the payload itself so that I'm not just blocking all the traffic destined for attacking a specific host. I'm only blocking the traffic that is bad and attacking that host. I'm leaving all of its other good traffic to actually reach that host. So you're not essentially black holing that individual user, completely knocking them off the network or the whole subnet itself. So very strategic, surgical type of mitigation. Again, another business flexibility so that customers can really feel like they're optimizing and get their maximum return on investment when they deploy the solution, which is really key. Again, and then the speed, which I've touched on a number of times, is critical to this deployment. As I mentioned, it applies in multiple markets and multiple locations. So you could be monitoring and mitigating a branch style router. It could be an edge style router. It could be a core router. It could be a data center oriented deployment or between data centers. So you could be doing all at the same time. So you've got, again, a tremendous amount of flexibility as it pertains to the solution itself.
Yeah, so as well as being able to sort of protect all of those interfaces within the provider environment that Mark was talking about, the fact that we can now do north, south, east, west, we can be on key gateways in the network. One benefit we get of that is we get huge visibility into the traffic. So as well as seeing the attacks, we get the ability to understand what the traffic was before the attack, or what it looks like during the attack, and what the attack looks like, so that you get great threat intelligence, and you get to understand how the traffic behaves once the attack's gone. So it gives you good visibility into not just understanding how the attack was blocked, but also the point that Mark made. It's the benefit of this approach is it's designed to keep traffic running. It's designed to keep services and applications online. That's the real purpose of this. It happens to block DDoS attacks to do that, but it's blocking DDoS attacks by doing that surgically and ensuring that the legitimate traffic keeps flowing. So we have great visibility in the analytics side of the solution that enables you to your network teams and your security teams to be sure that we did a good job of securing it from the DDoS attack, but also the network teams being sure that we didn't do any damage by blocking good traffic.
Yeah, thanks. And I think the other element too that I wanted to touch on was that it's the after attack analysis that's also available right from the TDD solution, where because we've actually got the traffic that has been redirected or sampled and sent up to the TDD solution, you're able to, after the fact, export and analyze that actual data itself. And for further education, looking for patterns, there's all sorts of post analysis that can be done, because you actually have the actual, not just header traffic, but the payload traffic itself that was causing and triggering the attack itself. Which is I think always interesting, right? More data is always good for post analysis. I think the other element. Sorry, go ahead, John.
I was just going to say often it's really important to be able to show actually what happened, because there may have been other things going on during an attack, and someone else somewhere else in the IT department might have had an issue going at the same time, and to be able to go into the DDoS protection solution and pull out a level of detail that says, look, it wasn't us blocking that traffic, is actually just as important as showing what traffic you did block in those sort of scenarios. So that visibility is really key.
Yeah, that's a great example as well. I could also see an example where, between your upstream provider and relationship partner that you've got, where the traffic's coming from, and understanding what's the scenario around this environment that's causing a problem. Is there something more to be done? It's just good. I think overall, the more information you have is power, and certainly helps in this scenario. I think the other aspect that's worth mentioning is the fact that this solution, while it can be deployed for individual customers and whatever shape and size, as we've touched on, it can also be deployed in a scenario often referred to as a multi-tenant type of scenario, where you can actually have a managed service security provider, or it could be actually a very large enterprise with multiple business groups or separate business entities, where you do have a centralized deployment, and you are now carving up portions of that network to provide focused visibility, I'd say, and people can go in, monitor, manage their own reporting, see what's really going on in their network. And obviously, depending on how you deployed that type of scenario, it could be monetized as well. So whether it's payback, bill back into the enterprise organization, or actually as a managed service of sorts. So a lot of, again, as much flexibility as possible with a single deployment. That's obviously key, and the flexibility to evolve it. That's another obvious. One of the key tenets of the relationship that we've certainly seen pay back in spades already is the fact that, because Corero was extremely flexible in their they're continuously looking at new solutions, looking at how they can make the product better. They're extremely responsive, and they're highly focused on the security area, which is critical to this area. This is not a one and done type scenario. This is a relationship and a partnership that is an ongoing and daily discussion on that element. So maybe when it comes to the whole why, I think we've actually touched on the whole scenario of what are we really getting from this solution. Well, I mean, it's a highly very purpose-built solution. it's certainly focused on volumetric DDoS and stopping bad malicious traffic. But I think what it's really focused as well on is to Sean, your point, it's really business uptime. It's about optimizing the traffic flow in the network. It's not making arbitrary decisions on shutting down traffic. We're only interested in stopping the bad traffic, and highly focused on uptime and allowing the network operators to be able to deliver good traffic, especially in today's, if you can imagine in today's scenario that everybody's under, where network traffic is through the roof, and so are the people that are interested in unfortunately inflicting damage, in those networks. So we're definitely seeing a spike in interest accordingly. But so this solution can definitely approach that. It's not a traditional approach. We're not interested in traditional in this sense. We're definitely looking at leadership, and this product and solution fits right into the leadership category. It has to be different. You have to be thinking outside the box. The evolution of attacks continues to evolve, and this solution can evolve with it to mitigate them on that part. And we just think that the MX, the leadership of the MX series, Tria, especially the hardware and the software combined, Junos along with the Tria chipset, and then you've got Corero's leadership with their TDD and their infrastructure that drives the TDD is a win-win, great combination together. So with that, I'd just like to thank everybody for taking the time to listen in and participate and enjoy. Hopefully you've been able to take something away from the conversation, and great special thanks to Sean as well.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's my pleasure. And yes, I agree. I hope people understand the value in the solution. I mean, certainly from our perspective, we see that we're enabling Juniper customers to unlock, more investment than they already made in going with Juniper and building their network with Juniper. There's these capabilities that exist in your MX and other platforms that enable this sort of heavy lifting to be done, and applying the brains from some security specialists such as Corero for particular areas to that really delivers on your connected security story. So it really is working out. Excellent partnership.
Yeah, agreed. Totally agreed.